Alpha King saw Omega stand between him and a spirit beast and asked why the beast lowered its head. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the main character. Emily Turner had always known she was different. A weak Omega, that was what she had been called by most in her pack. The whispers had started early in her life, echoing in the corners of the camp and among the other wolves. They said she couldn't shift like the others, couldn't tap into the fierce power of her wolf. To them, she was an outcast, an Omega who would never rise to anything of significance. But Emily had never believed them. She knew she had something special, something inside her that had yet to awaken. That was until the day everything changed. She stood in the clearing, the air thick with tension. The spirit beast had appeared, its glowing eyes locked onto Alpha King Alexander, a massive figure with silver-gray eyes and an aura of power that seemed to crush the air around him. Emily had been instructed to stay out of the way, as always, but something told her to move forward, to step into the space between the king and the beast. The pack watched in silence, the rustling of the leaves the only sound that broke the stillness. No one had dared to approach the spirit beast. No one had even tried. But Emily stood there, her heart pounding in her chest as the beast growled softly. Alpha King Alexander was staring at her, his expression unreadable, yet there was something in his eyes that made Emily's breath catch. Why had the beast stopped? Why was it lowering its head to her? Her heart raced with confusion and awe. The king stepped forward, his voice like thunder. Why has it lowered its head to you, Omega? Emily swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper as she looked back at him. I don't know, Your Majesty. The spirit beast continued to stare at her, its eyes softening, as if recognizing something in her that no one else could see. She took a tentative step forward, her hand reaching out towards the creature, and to her surprise, the beast didn't flinch. It seemed to accept her presence, almost as if it had been waiting for her. Alpha King Alexander watched the interaction, his usual composed demeanor faltering for a moment. The pack stood still, murmuring in confusion and disbelief, unsure of what they were witnessing. Emily felt a strange warmth spread through her hand as she gently touched the beast's fur. The energy between them was electric, and for a brief moment, she felt connected to something ancient, something powerful. This is impossible, Alpha King muttered, his voice low and filled with something close to reverence. Emily, still reeling from the experience, turned to him. She had always been the outcast, but now, for the first time, she felt a sense of purpose. The pack had always seen her as weak, but in this moment, Emily realized that maybe she had something that no one else could understand. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as powerless as they had believed. And as the Alpha King's gaze held hers, something shifted in the air. Something had changed, and Emily knew, deep down, that her life was about to take a turn she had never imagined. Emily stood frozen, her hand still resting on the spirit beast's fur, her heart pounding in her chest. The pack behind her murmured in disbelief, their gazes shifting between her and the beast. Alpha King Alexander, usually so composed and commanding, was silent. His silver-gray eyes flickered with something unreadable as he watched her with growing curiosity. She could feel the weight of his gaze, like a heavy presence pressing against her, but she didn't dare turn away from the beast. The energy between them was palpable, and Emily had never felt anything like it before. She had always felt weak, unimportant, but here, in this moment, something deep inside her had awakened. The beast, large and majestic, lowered its head further, almost as if in submission, its glowing eyes still locked with hers. It was as if it recognized her, as if they shared some unspoken bond that neither of them fully understood. What is this? Alpha King's voice broke through the silence, his words sharp and filled with wonder. Emily swallowed hard, still not fully comprehending what was happening. I don't know, Your Majesty, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The beast's presence was overwhelming, but strangely comforting. It was like an ancient power, something primal, reaching out to her. She felt a strange warmth spread from her hand where it touched the beast, and the air around them seemed to hum with life. Alpha King stepped closer, his boots crunching softly on the forest floor, and Emily could feel his tension, the unspoken question in his eyes. He was a king, a leader, and yet in this moment, she could sense that he was as lost as she was. The spirit beast was no ordinary creature. It was a creature of legend, something that most thought only existed in old stories. But here it was, bowing before Emily. "You've done something no one else could do," Alexander said, his voice low, filled with awe. Emily dared to look at him then, his piercing eyes studying her, searching for answers. "I didn't do anything," she replied, shaking her head. "It's not me. It's the beast. It chose to lower its head to me." Alexander's gaze softened, and for the first time, she saw something like respect in his eyes. He took another step forward, his presence overwhelming. "The bond between you and the beast," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "It's something I've never seen before. It's rare and powerful. This is not just an ordinary Omega." Emily felt a strange sense of pride swell in her chest. She wasn't just the weak, rejected Omega she had always been told she was. She had something in her, something that no one had ever truly understood. Alexander reached out then, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. His touch was warm, reassuring. "You are not what they say you are," he murmured, his voice softer now. "You are more." The words hit her harder than she expected. She had always been the outcast, the one who was never seen, but in that moment, with Alpha King Alexander standing beside her, she felt seen. She felt powerful. The beast, still kneeling before her, let out a soft growl, almost as if it was acknowledging the Alpha King's words. Emily stepped back slowly, her heart racing as she tried to process everything. She had always dreamed of being something more, of being seen, but now that dream was staring her in the face. The Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in the land, had just acknowledged her in a way that she had never expected. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel weak. She felt like she belonged. And as the pack watched in stunned silence, Emily knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Emily felt the forest holding its breath as the spirit beast slowly rose, its luminous gaze lingering on her before turning toward the trees as if awaiting her next move. But before she could make sense of the connection pulsing faintly beneath her skin, the murmurs of the pack swelled behind her, a tide of disbelief and thinly disguised irritation. They had always seen her as the quiet Omega who swept the training grounds and gathered herbs near the stream. Now they stared as if she had stepped into a story that did not belong to her. Emily's pulse fluttered at the attention, but Alpha King Alexander stepped forward, his presence cutting through the noise like a shift in the wind. His silver-gray eyes swept across the gathered wolves with a calm so steady it silenced more than any command. "Back away," he said, not with harshness, but with an authority so effortless that even the most dominant wolves lowered their gazes. Emily watched him, unsure why her breath caught at the way he shielded her from their scrutiny without ever touching her. He looked at her then, searching her face with a softness he did not seem accustomed to showing. "Emily Turner," he said quietly, as if testing the weight of her name. "Tell me, has anything like this ever happened to you before?" She shook her head, her voice only a whisper. "No, Your Majesty. I have never seen a spirit beast in my life. I did not even know they were real." His expression flickered, something between concern and fascination. "They do not appear without purpose." Emily felt her cheeks warm, uncertainty curling in her chest. It must have sensed something by mistake. "I am not special. Everyone knows that." Alexander's brow tightened, a small crease forming as he studied her. "Everyone is wrong." The words were simple, but the certainty behind them struck harder than she expected. Emily's breath trembled. No one had ever contradicted the world on her behalf before. Before she could respond, a cluster of young wolves stepped hesitantly from the crowd. Their voices were low, pretending respect but tinged with disbelief. "Your Majesty, she is just an Omega," one murmured. "A weak one," another added under his breath. "It does not make sense." Emily stiffened, the familiar sting of those words slipping beneath her skin like cold air. She lowered her gaze, but Alexander's attention snapped toward the voices, and a hush fell instantly. He did not raise his voice, yet the air itself seemed to answer him. "A title does not determine worth," he said calmly. If you cannot understand that, then you are not yet worthy to question what you witnessed. The pack fell into subdued silence, and Emily dared to lift her eyes. Alexander looked at her again, but this time she saw something different in his gaze, something almost protective. As the spirit beast let out a soft rumble and circled back to her side, Emily felt an unfamiliar strength press gently against her heart. The forest seemed to lean closer, listening. Alexander stepped closer too, not enough to overwhelm her, but enough for his voice to reach her clearly. Something has awakened in you, he said. And whatever it is, it does not belong to fear. Emily exhaled shakily, her hand brushing the creature's warm fur as if grounding herself. For the first time in her life, she felt the edge of possibility. And as Alexander held her gaze beneath the fading afternoon light, Emily sensed her world shifting, quietly, irrevocably, toward a destiny she had never dared to imagine. The spirit beast lingered close to Emily as the last rays of daylight filtered through the tall pines, its quiet presence wrapping the clearing in a strange calm. Emily could still feel the warmth along her palm, where she had touched its fur, a faint echo of the connection that had startled her as much as it had everyone else. She stepped back slowly, unsure if she should move or remain perfectly still. The pack watched her with wide eyes, their uncertainty almost louder than their earlier whispers. Emily had lived her whole life avoiding attention, slipping into the background where no one would question her place. Now every gaze clung to her, searching for answers she did not have. Alpha King Alexander walked a few steps away from the clearing's center, motioning for her to follow. She hesitated, glancing at the spirit beast, which responded with a soft rumble, nudging her gently forward as if giving permission. Emily drew in a steadying breath and walked toward the king. The distance between them felt charged, like stepping through air that held too much meaning. Alexander looked down at her with an expression she could not name, something between curiosity and a quiet kind of recognition. "Emily," he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "Tell me what you felt when the spirit beast approached." She swallowed, unsure how to describe something she barely understood. "It was like it was searching for something," she said softly. "And when it looked at me, I felt this warmth. Not frightening, just familiar." Alexander studied her, as if committing every word to memory. "Spirit beasts do not offer familiarity lightly," he murmured. "They sense truths long before we do." Emily felt her cheeks warm, unsure how to respond. "Your Majesty, I promise I did not do anything. I did not even know it existed until today." "Yet it bowed to you," Alexander said, lifting his eyes toward the still-watching pack. "And that is something even the strongest alphas have never commanded." Emily's breath caught. The idea that she had been acknowledged by something ancient and revered was overwhelming. She shook her head slowly. "I am just an Omega. There is nothing special in me." Alexander stepped closer, his presence steady and grounding. "Do you truly believe that?" She hesitated, then nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "It is what I have been told my whole life." A quiet pause stretched between them, filled only by the faint evening breeze and the distant call of forest birds returning to their nests. Alexander's expression softened, something gentle flickering behind his stern exterior. "Then understand this," he said quietly. "Power does not always roar. Sometimes it is the quietest soul that carries the oldest strength." Emily felt her breath tremble at his words, something inside her leaning toward the truth he spoke. Before she could reply, a soft glow shimmered beside them. The spirit beast lowered its head again, this time brushing its forehead gently against her arm. The soft contact sent a ripple of warmth through her, settling deep in her chest like a pulse of recognition. The pack gasped behind them, the sound sharp in the fading light. Alexander watched the gesture with an intensity that made Emily's heart flutter. "It has chosen you," he said quietly. "And now we must understand why." Emily looked from the king to the spirit beast, feeling the world shift beneath her feet. For the first time, her future did not feel small. It felt vast, mysterious, and impossibly alive. Emily stood still, her mind racing with the implications of what had just occurred. The spirit beast was still beside her, its presence a warm, comforting force. She had never imagined that she would be the one chosen by something so majestic, so powerful. It felt surreal, almost like a dream she was afraid to wake up from. Alexander, standing beside her, watched the creature with an intensity she hadn't seen before. His silver-gray eyes glimmered with a mix of awe and something else, something deeper. "This is no simple event," he said, his voice low and thoughtful. Emily swallowed, still processing what had happened. "What does it mean, Your Majesty?" she asked softly, her voice shaking slightly. Alexander looked down at her, his gaze softening. "It means something has shifted, Emily," he replied. "The spirit beast does not choose lightly. It has a bond with the land, with the pack, and it only bows to those it recognizes as worthy of a deeper connection." Emily's heart raced as she tried to make sense of his words. "But I am just an Omega," she whispered, barely believing her own words. "There is nothing special about me." Alexander's expression hardened, the familiar mask of the Alpha King settling over his features. "That is where you are wrong. Your worth is not determined by the pack's expectations or by the title they place on you. You have something inside you, something they do not understand. The spirit beast knows it, and now I must find out what it is." Emily felt a flutter of uncertainty in her chest. What did he mean by that? What was it inside her that had drawn the spirit beast's attention? She had spent her entire life being told that she was weak, that she was not like the other Omegas, that she would never rise to anything of importance. Yet here she was, standing with the Alpha King, the spirit beast at her side, and a world of possibilities opening before her. Alexander turned, his gaze sweeping over the pack. The wolves were still watching them, their eyes filled with curiosity and uncertainty. Emily could feel the weight of their stares, but this time, she didn't shrink away. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, not for her weaknesses, but for something more. "The pack will learn of this," Alexander said, his voice steady and commanding, "and they will learn of her worth. It is time that we all recognize that power does not lie in bloodlines alone, but in the strength of character and the bond we share with the world around us." Emily felt a shiver run through her at his words. Was he truly willing to stand by her side, to challenge everything she had ever been told about her place in the pack? The spirit beast let out another soft rumble, as if agreeing with Alexander's statement. It took a step forward, its glowing eyes turning toward Emily with what seemed like a silent invitation. She slowly reached out her hand again, her fingers brushing the fur of the beast. This time, the connection was even stronger. It was like something inside her clicked into place, a feeling of recognition and belonging that she had never known. The spirit beast, its eyes filled with something ancient and wise, lowered its head once more, and Emily's heart swelled with a strange sense of peace. "You are not alone in this," Alexander said, his voice a quiet assurance. "You never were." The pack, still watching in stunned silence, seemed to hold their breath, waiting for the next move. But for Emily, there was no more fear. There was only the future, wide open and filled with promise. As she stood there, with the Alpha King by her side and the spirit beast at her feet, she knew that she had taken the first step into a new world, one where her true worth would finally be recognized. Twilight settled over the clearing, painting the forest in soft gold as Emily stood between the spirit beast and the Alpha King, feeling the world tilt in ways she could not understand. The pack began to disperse into small clusters, whispering among themselves as they cast lingering glances her way. Emily tried to breathe normally, but every inhale felt too full, as if the air itself had thickened around her. Alexander stepped closer, his expression thoughtful, almost unreadable. "Emily," he said quietly, "there is something I must know." She looked up at him, her heart fluttering with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "What is it, Your Majesty?" His gaze held hers with a steady intensity. "Before today, have you ever felt anything unusual? A pull toward the forest, heightened instincts, an awareness of something beyond the ordinary world?" Emily hesitated, unsure how much to confess. She had always thought her odd experiences meant she was simply different in the wrong ways. But now, under Alexander's watchful gaze, the truth surfaced gently. "Sometimes," she admitted softly, "when I walk near the old pines, I feel a warmth in my chest. And at night, I hear sounds that do not frighten me, even when no one else hears them." Alexander's brows drew together, not in concern but in understanding. "You have sensed the spirit realm," he murmured. "Most wolves cannot. Only those with rare gifts can feel its presence." Emily stared at him, stunned. But I do not have any gifts. I cannot even shift like the others. Shifting is not the only form of strength, Alexander replied. And perhaps the wolf inside you is not the part meant to awaken first. Her breath caught as she considered his words. Could that truly be possible? That the part of her she had long believed to be missing was simply something else entirely? The spirit beast stepped forward again, brushing its flank gently against her side. The warmth that flowed through her was stronger this time, almost like a silent greeting. Alexander watched the interaction, his voice lower now, almost reverent. The spirit beast is not merely acknowledging you, he said. It is protecting you. Emily blinked, taken aback. Protecting me? From what? Alexander looked toward the distant trees, his jaw tightening slightly. There are shifts in the realm, movements that even I do not yet understand. When spirit beasts appear, it is never without purpose. It may be warning us that something approaches. Emily felt a cool shiver run through her despite the gentle evening breeze. You believe something is coming? I believe, Alexander said carefully, that the spirit beast has chosen you because you will play a role in what is to come. Emily swallowed, unsure how to hold the magnitude of his words. But I am not prepared for something like that. Alexander stepped closer, his voice steady. No one ever thinks they are. Yet destiny rarely waits for readiness. His reassurance should have frightened her, but instead, it wrapped around her like a quiet promise. The spirit beast let out a low, melodic sound, almost like encouragement, and Emily felt a gentle pulse in her chest, as if her heart were responding to its call. The forest grew still again, the soft hum of crickets rising with the deepening dusk. Alexander's gaze softened as he looked at her, his voice warm and grounding. Whatever comes, Emily Turner, you will not face it alone. For the first time, she believed him. With the spirit beast at her side and the Alpha King's steady presence before her, she felt a fragile, growing strength take root within her, a strength she had never known until now. The moon had climbed higher now, casting pale silver light across the clearing as the last of the pack drifted away, leaving only Emily, Alexander, and the spirit beast beneath the towering pines. The air felt softer, quieter, as if the entire forest were listening to the quiet changes unfolding between them. Emily stood close to the spirit beast, still feeling its warmth against her side, but her attention kept drifting to Alexander. His presence was steady, anchored, and something in his gaze told her he was seeing her in an entirely new way. We should walk, he said gently, motioning toward a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. There is more you should understand before night fully settles. Emily hesitated only for a second before nodding. The spirit beast followed her steps like a silent guardian, its soft footfalls blending seamlessly with the forest floor. Alexander walked just ahead of her, but not far enough to create distance. Instead, he moved at a pace that made it clear he wanted her beside him. After a moment, he spoke. Emily, when a spirit beast chooses someone, it forms a bond. Not one of ownership, but of connection. It sees the heart more clearly than any wolf ever could. Emily felt warmth bloom in her chest at his words, though she still struggled to understand. Why me? I have never been brave or strong. I do not have anything the spirit realm would want. Alexander slowed, turning toward her with a look that softened his usually stern features. Strength is not always loud, he said. Sometimes it is found in those who continue forward despite the world telling them they should not. His words resonated in a place she rarely touched, stirring something gentle and fragile. She lowered her gaze, but Alexander stepped closer. Tell me, he said softly. When others dismissed you, what did you feel? Emily hesitated, surprised he would ask such a personal question. I felt small, she admitted. But I also felt like something inside me was waiting for something I could not explain. The spirit beast nudged her hand as if agreeing with her confession. Alexander watched the interaction, his voice dipping lower. It was waiting for recognition, and the beast saw it long before any of us did. Emily's breath trembled slightly, overwhelmed by the idea that she had carried a quiet truth her whole life, without knowing. They continued walking, the forest glowing softly around them. Fireflies flickered through the air, tiny sparks of light drifting like stars fallen into the trees. Emily touched the spirit beast's fur again, feeling the subtle pulse beneath her fingertips. Does this bond mean I will change? She asked. Alexander answered with honesty. Yes, not all at once, but gradually. You will begin to sense things others do not. You may even find your wolf shifting differently when the time comes. The spirit realm does not bond with mortals without purpose. Emily felt a shiver, not fear, but anticipation. And what does it mean for the pack? She asked quietly. Alexander stopped walking, turning to face her fully. Fireflies swirled behind him, creating a halo of soft golden light. It means, he said gently, that their world is about to change. And you will be at the heart of that change. Emily stared up at him, her pulse fluttering like wings. But I never asked for any of this, she whispered. Alexander's gaze softened even further. Destiny does not ask for permission. The spirit beast lowered its head beside her, its glowing eyes reflecting calm certainty. Emily drew a slow breath, realizing the truth in his words. Her life had shifted the moment the beast bowed before her. And standing here beneath the moonlit canopy, with Alexander's unwavering gaze steady on hers, she felt something new taking root inside her. Courage, fragile but real. The kind that grows when someone finally sees you for who you truly are. The forest seemed to breathe with Emily as she walked beside Alpha King Alexander. The weight of the night was settling in, but there was a quiet strength in her step now, as though each footfall resonated with a deeper purpose she was just beginning to understand. The spirit beast trotted by her side, its presence constant and reassuring, like a silent guardian. As they moved deeper into the woods, the sounds of the pack slowly faded behind them, swallowed by the thick canopy of trees. Emily had never felt so far from everything she had known. Yet, at the same time, she had never felt more alive. Alexander glanced over at her, his expression unreadable, but his eyes soft. The journey ahead will not be easy, he said, his voice steady in the stillness. The bond you share with the spirit beast, with the realm beyond, means that you are marked. It will make you a target, not just among your own kind, but beyond these lands as well. Emily felt a flutter in her chest at his words. A target? She asked, a quiet tremor in her voice. But why? I haven't asked for any of this. Alexander's gaze softened, and he stopped walking, turning to face her fully. Destiny doesn't ask for permission, he said gently. It moves in ways we cannot always understand. But the bond you share with the spirit beast is no accident. It has chosen you for a reason, and you will be the one to protect what is coming. Emily swallowed, uncertainty swirling in her mind. Protect what? She whispered. What is coming? Alexander's expression grew more serious, his jaw tightening ever so slightly. There are forces at work that seek to unravel the balance of this world, he explained. The spirit realm has been disturbed, and you, Emily, are connected to it in ways that none of us truly comprehend yet. But your connection is key. The weight of his words settled over her like a heavy cloak. She had always thought her life was meant for something small, something quiet. But now, with the Alpha King standing before her, his words piercing through her doubts, she realized she might be standing on the precipice of something much larger. I don't know if I am ready for this, Emily admitted, her voice shaky as she struggled to wrap her mind around it all. No one ever is, Alexander replied, his voice softening, almost kind. But the question is not whether you are ready. It's whether you will rise to meet what awaits you. Emily took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked into Alexander's eyes, seeing a glimmer of something beyond leadership, something that hinted at trust. And what do you expect from me? She asked, her voice steadying. To stand by your side, Alexander said simply. You will not face this alone. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the meaning of his words settled over her. He was offering her more than just guidance. He was offering her his protection. It was more than she had ever expected, more than she had ever dared to imagine. The spirit beast let out a low, resonant sound, like an echo in the air, and nuzzled against her side as if agreeing with Alexander. The path will not be easy, he continued, but I promise, we will face it together. The forest around them seemed to grow quieter, the air thick with the weight of their conversation. Emily felt the truth of his words stir something within her, a flicker of courage she hadn't known existed. It wasn't about being ready. It was about choosing to move forward despite the unknown. And for the first time, she felt a shift inside her, as if her destiny was finally starting to make sense. "I will stand with you," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "And I will face what comes." Alexander nodded, his expression softening with a small, approving smile. "Then let's walk the path together," he said, his voice quiet but firm. The forest seemed to respond, the soft rustling of the leaves a gentle affirmation of her words. As they continued their journey deeper into the woods, Emily felt the weight of the unknown ahead. But for the first time, she also felt something new: hope. And with hope came the belief that maybe, just maybe, she was ready after all. The deeper they walked into the forest, the more the world around them seemed to change. The air grew thicker with the scent of pine and earth, and the sky above them shifted from soft hues of dusk to the deep, endless black of night. Emily felt a sense of quiet, wonder, the kind she hadn't known since childhood. It was as if the forest itself was alive, watching, waiting. The spirit beast walked beside her, its presence comforting, a steady rhythm in the midst of the growing stillness. Alpha King Alexander led the way, his footsteps strong and sure, guiding them through the winding path. The silence between them was not uncomfortable, but rather filled with a quiet understanding. Every now and then, Emily would glance at Alexander, wondering what he was thinking. He was a man of power and authority, someone who seemed to hold the weight of the world on his shoulders. Yet, in this moment, he seemed to be at peace, as if the forest and the journey were a part of him, as much as the crown on his head. "How much farther?" Emily asked, her voice soft, breaking the silence that had settled around them. Alexander glanced over his shoulder, his silver-gray eyes catching the faint light of the moon. "Not far," he said. "We are heading to a place where the old magic still lingers. A place where you can feel the spirit realm more closely. It will help you understand what is awakening inside you." Emily nodded, her heart racing slightly at the mention of the spirit realm. She still wasn't sure what to make of it all. She had always known there was something different about her, but the idea that she was somehow connected to a realm beyond her understanding made her feel both terrified and awestruck. "Do you ever feel afraid, Your Majesty?" she asked, her voice tentative. Alexander paused, considering the question for a moment before answering. "Fear is natural," he said slowly, "but it is how we choose to face it that defines us. I have faced many challenges in my life, but I do not let fear control me. Instead, I use it to push me forward." Emily thought about his words as they continued to walk. She had spent her life trying to hide her fear, trying to fit into a world that had never quite understood her. But now, with each step, she felt something inside her begin to shift. She wasn't sure if it was courage or something else entirely, but it was as if she was starting to accept the unknown. They reached a clearing, and Alexander stopped, turning to face her. "This is where the bond between you and the spirit realm will be strongest," he said, his voice low but firm. Emily looked around, the clearing bathed in moonlight, the trees towering above them like silent sentinels. The spirit beast stepped forward, its eyes glowing softly in the dark. "What do I need to do?" Emily asked, her breath catching in her throat. "Close your eyes," Alexander instructed. "Let the magic of the forest surround you. Trust in what you feel, not what you think." Emily did as he said, closing her eyes and taking a deep breath. The air around her felt different now, charged with something she couldn't explain. It was like the very earth was alive, breathing with her. She let herself relax into it, letting go of the doubt that had always clung to her. Slowly, she felt a pull deep within her chest, a connection to something ancient, something powerful. The spirit beast's low growl echoed through her mind, and she understood, it was calling her. She opened her eyes just as the spirit beast stepped closer, its body glowing in the moonlight. In that moment, Emily knew. She wasn't just an Omega. She wasn't just someone who had been overlooked and dismissed. She was part of something much larger, something that would change everything. As the night grew darker around them, Emily felt the weight of her destiny settle on her shoulders. And for the first time, she didn't shrink from it. She was ready to rise to whatever was coming, whatever the spirit realm had in store for her.